If someone was to come to me and ask me, Courtney, what is your favorite movie and how would you define it to be perfect? I would say The Ghost and Mrs.Muir, and let me explain to you why. Released in 1947, it stars Gene Tierney, Rex Harrison, and George Sanders. The story is about Mrs. Edwin Muir, a recently widowed wife, taking care of her daughter, played by Natalie Wood. She moves out of her in-laws and moves into Gull Cottage on the seaside. There, she meets Captain Greg, who is haunting the place because he doesn't want people living there. But through her toughness and her stubbornness, she makes kind of a deal with him. He lets her stay on, believe it or not. He lets her, he's a ghost. He lets her stay on, and through trial and error, there are things that they work out together, and they eventually grow very close to each other. So, here's what I really love about The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. First, it is the casting. Gene Tierney is beautiful in this role. She does a fine job, and I actually would define her as a strong female character. How? Let me explain. Nowadays, and yes, I gotta bring this up, but nowadays a strong female character wields a sword, a skin-tight outfit, and doesn't cry. For the most part. That's what society now builds a strong woman. To me, there are plenty of strong female characters in older films. Most notably Hitchcock. Hitchcock had a lot of strong female characters. But not many people know about the regular female strong characters. And I would choose Edwin for one of them. She is a recently widowed wife who takes care of her daughter single-handedly. And yes, I know she has a caretaker, maid type person with her, but ultimately she's raising her daughter by herself. She is a regular housewife. She still does the duties of a housewife, and even though she has a maid, she still helps out around the house. She isn't a slouch. She also stands up for herself when she knows that she wants something. When she wants Gull Cottage, but the legal owner slash real estate guy tells her, no, you don't want it, it won't suit you, and you waste your time, she will say things like, it is my time, I want this cottage. She stands up for what she wants. Rex Harrison, who is Captain Greg the Ghost, also tries to bully her in numerous ways in their first meetings together. But she also is strong enough to come out with, like, she's able to stand up to him. He's a ghost, and she still fights for what she wants. So, she ultimately knows what she wants, and therefore, I personify her as a strong female character. Rex Harrison as the ghost is also awesome. He is quite funny. He's also very charming despite the gruffness, but you actually get to know him. There is time devoted to these characters, and they don't just fall in love right away. There is time devoted to them, and they get to know each other, and we get to know them. It is a beautifully worked out love story. One of the scenes that I find is most tragic, I guess, if you will, in a way, is when he leaves her. And this is how it goes. So they decide to write a book together to save the house so that she doesn't get kicked out, because the dividends that she had from her husband's death were ended or something like that, a crash. So they decide to write a book on Captain Greg, an autobiography, if you will. It publishes and it makes money. And it's through that meeting she meets one of the most caddest men ever, and that is George Sanders. I'm not really sure about his character name. Miles Fairley. So she ends up falling for Miles because he does have a certain charm. Plus, it's George Sanders. I mean, who couldn't fall for George Sanders? So she ultimately falls for him, and even though Captain Greg does not trust him and wants her to stay away from him, he knows it is her choice. So one night he makes a decision to leave her. She's in bed sleeping and he talks to her. It's like she doesn't know he's there, but yet there are certain points where she just moves when he talks to her, and it's just really, really sweet. And he gives up. He leaves he sacrifices his time for her because he doesn't want her to get confused. You get the sense in the beginning of the movie when you first see him that he's used women in the past. Several women, if you will. But this was one woman he hasn't used. She's been able to defend herself towards him. She smarts off to him, but yet she's real to him. So he gets that feeling, and he ultimately falls in love with the first woman ever. And it's really played out, and it's beautiful. Can't say enough about this scene. It does make me very sad that he leaves her, but ultimately he's sacrificing himself for her, and it's so true love. If you guys want to keep Romeo and Juliet, go ahead. I will take Captain Greg and Mrs. Muir any day. Ultimately, he never comes back until the end of the movie, which makes it even more sad and depressing. But the thing is, he lets her live out her life however way she chooses. So he ultimately made the right decision, and it's definitely a really, really good scene in my opinion. I want to talk a little bit about Natalie Wood real quick. Natalie Wood does not play a huge part in this movie, but you know she's there, and she is a real sweetheart. During this time, she was doing this along with Miracle on 34th Street and a little film called Scudda Hoo, Scudda Hey. All three movies in the same year, playing different characters and different accents. She's not the first child to ever go through this, but really 3 movies, and I think she was only about 8 at the time. That's a lot to put on a little girl like her, but she does it so well, especially since I've grown up with Miracle on 34th Street and love Ghost and Mrs.Muir. You can tell that she does a phenomenal job with both the movies. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the soundtrack. Bernard Herrmann once again knocks it out of the park. Best known for his musical scores for Hitchcock, believe it or not. This score is hauntingly beautiful. It could be haunting at one point, romantic in another, sad in another. And there's also little joyful stuff here and there. It's just really beautiful. Captain Greg is also a sea captain, so there's parts in the soundtrack where it emphasizes like a flute, and it emphasizes that you're on a ship, and it's really beautiful. It's flawless music. I listen to the soundtrack all the time on Amazon. It is beautiful. Give it a listen. The soundtrack alone is amazing. Cinematography is also good. What this movie does is actually give you the sense of eeriness, and before you even meet the ghost, there are lots of elements where you think you see him, but it's really an illusion. It's played off very, very well. Bottom line, this movie is phenomenal. It's acted well, it's played well, the cinematography is great, the music's great. This is by far, for me, what I would classify as a darn near perfect movie. So, I hope you have enjoyed this review of The Ghost and Mrs.Muir. Let me know in the comments below what you think of The Ghost and Mrs.Muir, and I will talk to you all in my next video. Stay tuned, because I should be having another Redbird vintage box coming your way sometime this month, and hopefully something new and different. Okay, bye! Have a great, wonderful day.